Hi, Facebook. I wanted to come on at the time that I was supposed to be on CNN and just let you know a little bit about what happened. And as I do that, before I get into it, I want to see if I can't share this right now on my other Facebook page so that everyone who didn't get a chance to get the message will do so now. So give me 1 second as I endeavor to figure this thing out. So at 3:30 today I was supposed to be on CNN Live, and LA traffic being what it is, they couldn't get me there. So CNN is very good to me, as many of you may know, and what they normally do is send me car service, which I greatly appreciate. But today, traffic being what it is, car service couldn't get to me in time. Couldn't get to me to get me to the studio and on the set by 3:30. Hey Barry. Oh, thanks. You appreciate my art. I appreciate you. Thanks for that. So CNN couldn't get me there, and I was really bummed out about that because I really wanted to talk a little bit about this story in Chicago that happened over the last couple of days. There were two deadly shootings in Chicago, and they're trying to figure out what that's all about. And so if you haven't heard, in the north side of Chicago, the area is called Rogers Park. There were two gentlemen who were shot in the head and killed, and allegedly by the same gun. Now, it doesn't appear that these two men knew each other, but it appears that the same assailant shot each of them in the head. And this particular area in the north side of Chicago sounds to me like it's kind of affluent. According to some statistics that I was able to garner, the median salary for the residents is about $153,000 a year. Most of the population that live in that particular area are highly educated. It's divided up 42.9% white, 26.9% black, and 21.1% of that Rogers Park area is Hispanic. So because of these deadly shootings that occurred, Superintendent Eddie Johnson has deployed his gang unit as well as his narcotics unit officers to try to figure out pretty quickly what the heck is going on with these two shootings within a few days of one another and within close proximity to one another as well. In addition, it's reported that also the FBI and the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, are assisting in this effort to locate this shooter. And while this is a tragedy and every loss of life should have the same import, if you will, I'm just curious as to what happens on those weekends when there's 45, 56, 72 shootings, murders over a 3-day weekend, over a 2-day weekend in Chicago. I've thought all along that this is something surely that Superintendent Eddie Johnson could either figure out how to put the resources necessary to stop these deadly shootings that are happening weekend after weekend after weekend, or at the very least call somebody from a major metropolitan police department and ask them for some input, for some suggestions on what to do. Now, I'm not advocating that they should wait until Rogers Park area gets up to 54 shootings on a weekend before they do something. But I'm just saying, where's the FBI, where's the ATF, where's that gang unit and those narcotic officers, Superintendent Johnson, every weekend? Where are they? Because neither of these gentlemen, according to the reports that I've read, are gang members or are involved in any kind of narcotic activity, yet you're able to pull those resources and divert it, deploy it in that area. Does the population and the fact that it's somewhat affluent have any part to play in how you're managing your resources, Superintendent Johnson? I'm just wondering. So I would have loved to have posed that question to him on CNN Live today, but because traffic gremlins were working against me, I couldn't do that. But I wanted to come online nonetheless because many of you were expecting me to go live on CNN at 3:30, and so I wanted to come on and just explain really quickly what happened and why I didn't make it there, and more importantly, to talk a little bit about this deadly shooting situation in Rogers Park, and everything that's going on right now in Chicago. And I'm going to get into more detail about that whole Chicago situation on Wednesday when we meet again for live at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. on the East Coast on Wednesday. We'll talk very in depth about the Laquan McDonald matter, about the response of the FOP and the President, Kevin Graham, who had much to say about that guilty verdict. But I wanted to touch base with you about the two shootings in Rogers Park, the resources that are being allocated to deal with that, and rightfully so. 2 men lost their lives unnecessarily. There's no rhyme or reason. One was out walking his dog, and the other one was just out, I think 10 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, in the middle of the day, broad daylight, someone comes and shoots each of them in the head. One of the gentlemen is described as 73-year-old Douglas Watts. He's the gentleman that was walking his dog on September 30th when he was shot in the head, and it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. And then there was another gentleman who was shot in the head, and he seems to come from that Jewish community there in Rogers Park. So these two are very different. There's some question as to whether or not it could be a hate crime based on the fact that one, Mr. Watts, is allegedly gay, and the other gentleman is Jewish. So there's some concern that this could be some type of a hate crime. The individual was seen on surveillance cameras leaving or entering that area, and aside from the fact that they said he had an unusual gait, his description was not readily available. I think he had on a hoodie or something so you couldn't see his face. They aren't saying about the ethnicity of the suspected shooter, other than a slender male with an unusual gait. I don't know if that means he had a limp. Oh, I know what it was. They said that his feet pointed out, his toes pointed out in an odd way, and that caused him to have this unusual stride, if you will. So there will be much more said certainly on this matter given the locale of the incident. I'm just wanting that same kind of attention to be given to incidents that occur in Chicago citywide, right? And for those of you who live in Chicago, you should want that same kind of attention in your neighborhoods. And if you're not getting the FBI and the ATF every weekend when you have 54, 60 plus shootings, and I don't know how many people are murdered in that group, but if you're not getting that kind of attention every week in Chicago, you need to have a fireside chat with Superintendent Johnson, because evidently he can muster those resources when he wants to. And so let's get them everywhere where crime needs to be dealt with swiftly, decisively, and let's get those people that are killing black folks in Rogers Park and other areas as well. So we'll talk more on Wednesday. Until then, be good, be safe.